Wait, do you think I was going to announce it was my birthday?
Let's bring on Keith Pompey. Keith, do you believe
I don't think so.
I've said something? Because he's been texting me all week asking if I've got like this guest or that guest. I think we'd have started the show and he got right to it. What do you think, Keith?
Me no habla inglés.
Yeah, he's still talking about how I don't bring him on vacation. So what are you talking about there?
No, I'm joking with you guys. How you guys doing?
I'm doing good, Keith. I'm doing better than you because...
Do you have a gift for me? I mean, since everybody is announcing that they don't have a gift for Jeff, Keith, do you want to make an announcement?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not announcing anything. I'm just saying, like, when I get back from, I have to go out of town. When I get back, we're going to have some something to drink or something to eat. So that's going to be the birthday present.
See, that's much better than what Jason offered.
I was going to say, you make a better notes. At least he offered something. I just owned up to the fact I had nothing for you. Keith, are you over the Dallas Cowboys, what they did in the draft? Because I've been enjoying your Facebook page before I get to basketball.
Hey, it was crazy. It's funny because Jeff and I were texting a little bit on that. And I was like, he could tell that I was a little upset. And then he tried to hype up the guy from Florida, who can be he's probably going to be a good player, but I was extremely disappointed. I was extremely disappointed.
Wait, Keith, didn't you hear that he's the next Tyreek Hill?
That's what, I mean, and I was watching, I was seeing that. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, come on. But, who knows? I hope not for the Eagles, but one of my friends was joking, saying that Smith is going to be the next Freddie Mitchell. And I was like, nah, man, don't do him like that. Don't do him like that.
Don't do that to me, Keith.
Why? He might have one good catch.
I hate to be entertained by your unhappiness, but your Facebook page the last week after they made a trade with Dallas was quite entertaining. I'll bring it back to the basketball court, though. Sixers in good shape for first place in the East. You had a column today that I enjoyed reading about Joel Embiid and the handling of his minutes. I wanted to ask you, in the last 7 games, he's only played 27.4 minutes. He sat out in fourth quarters, and he commented he thinks it's good and not because he wants to play as much as he can, but make sure he's ready for the load in the playoffs. What's your sense talking to him and how this team is handling Joel Embiid heading into the playoffs?
It's one of those things where I think he is a little disappointed, but at the same time, he knows, like, you can't keep affording to get injured. I mean, he knows that. And when, like, you lay out everything, like, let's face it, I mean, Joel has been injured in all of his NBA seasons. He has not played a season where he did not miss any times with injuries. In the last 3 years, he went into the playoffs injured. So, as much as he wants to get his conditioning up, he did say, hey, this is something that maybe I'm going to have to do. And I believe he's going to have to put in some extra work, off the court to get in shape, because they can't afford to play him so he can, get 30 points a game and do all this other stuff. And then the way he falls on the ground all the time, you can't afford to get him hurt. You just can't.
Wait, so are you suggesting that the Sixers planned this time off, or is it more a situation where, because the Sixers have been able to blow out their opponents, I think the last 6 wins, they've averaged about a differential of about 21.8 points a game, if I'm right. If that's the case, is this something that the Sixers were planning to do, or is this a situation where because they've been dominating their opponents, he's been able to get that rest?
It's a little bit of both. And the reason, I know that sounds crazy, but it's real. And the reason why I'm saying a little bit of both, if you notice all season, whenever they had a sizable lead on an opponent, Doc Rivers took his starters out of the game and was playing the bench. Now, if those games were closer, Joel would have played. Like, they would have continued to play. But whenever they get a sizable lead, because Joel comes out at around the 3-minute mark in the third quarter, and depending on how the backup unit plays, it depends on if he's going to come back in or not. So, yes, it's something that Doc has been doing, but at the same time, it's one of those things where when you have a guy like Joel who missed 10 games and he's trying to get his conditioning up, and he's normally not, he doesn't play as many games in a row as he has, sometimes you want him to go out there and go that, those 5 extra minutes, just so, he can get his cardio up. So, yeah, if the games are competitive, the Sixers are trying to win, But if they're up by a sizable lead, and even in the case of the first Milwaukee game, the first one, like they were getting blown out, well, Doc takes them out. And he says, sit on the bench and rest up. So, yeah, it's something that they've been doing all season. But, right now, Joel would like to play more minutes, just to get his conditioning up.
Sixers have a chance to go 3 games up in the East with a win over the Pelicans tonight. We saw the Nets lose again, their 4th in a row last night. Their 4th in a row. I can't even speak straight today, Jeff. I blame you. It's because it's your birthday. They've struggled against the Bucks. What are your thoughts heading into the playoffs on the way the East is shaping up?
It's weird. Like, I think that, when we look at Brooklyn, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the sky is falling. Look at them, look at them." But again, they still aren't playing with their big three, and they are playing quality opponents, like teams who have something to play for. Those 2 games against Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a tough team. You can argue that Milwaukee has the most complete team in the Eastern Conference, right? So that one, without having James Harden, you can look at it and say, okay. Now, this last one was probably like, a loss that they really wouldn't like to lose. But, again, it was a quality opponent on the road. I think that what we'll see is we're going to see, Brooklyn possibly go in there as the 3rd seed. But at the same time, it's still going to be a tough out because you're saying to yourself, who are teams going to guard? Now, you can also say, well, what about continuity? These guys haven't played ball in a while together as a group. But at the same time, I think that they're all good enough to be able to win some games. So, my thing is I look at the Sixers. This is great for the Sixers just because they're going to have the easiest path of the 3 to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But to me, that still doesn't mean that the Sixers are guaranteed to come out of the East. So, it's great for them to get the number 1 seed, but at the same time, I still think that Brooklyn is going to be a tough out in the playoffs.
If you had to predict, let's say everything stayed the way it is. Let's say the Sixers actually coast through this next week of games, and in the 2 and 3 seed is the Nets and the Bucks. Do the Bucks have the firepower if the Nets are healthy? I know that's a big if, but if the Nets are healthy, do the Bucks now have the firepower and the defense to stop that big 3?
That's a great question because, you look at it and they have some guys who are, aren't fearful and they have some quality 2-way players. My only question is it's hard to say that because we have yet to see the big 3 in action together. At least, they played 7 games, but that was so early. That was a while ago. But, my thing is it's not really the big 3. It's the big 4. And the big 4 to me is the 4th guy is Joe Harris. And the reason why I'm calling him big 4 is because, when you have someone focusing on those 3 guys and you're leaving like a 4th option or a 4th best defender on Harris, right? I'm looking at it like he's going to torch you with the threes. So that's my thing. Like, yeah, you could possibly try to contain those guys. You're not going to shut them down, but who's going to defend Joe Harris? And I think that he's the X factor, for Brooklyn getting past the Milwaukee Bucks. Can you stop him? Now, if you have an answer for him and you can contain the other ones, yeah, they have a chance. But again, we also got to realize when we talk about Milwaukee, Giannis still hasn't gotten over that hump. So we're going to have to see what he can do in the playoffs. It was great that he was scoring a lot of points and knocking down threes, but what are you going to do in a playoff series when the games are more slower pace and everything like that?
What do you think Doc's going to do with the playoff rotation and the bench? We've seen them 10 deep, 11 deep at times. What's he going to do in terms of shortening the bench? And who's going to be in and out of the rotation, you think?
And don't say Mike Scott.
So you don't like Mike, huh?
Jeff has an anti-Mike Scott zone.
Now, here's the thing about when we talk about that, and here's a key that lets you know that probably Mike Scott won't be in a rotation, is that he's had Matisse Thybulle in lately guarding bigs, right? And he's been doing a fairly, pretty good job of doing it. So I look at Matisse is going to be in a rotation. Um, I also look at what's his name? I think we're going to see George Hill, Dwight Howard, Matisse, and Shake Milton. Now I think that Furkan will be like a situational guy. Doc, when you ask Doc, he says, "Oh man, we got 12 guys that are available to play, right?" But when you look at his stuff with last year with the Clippers, he basically had 9 guys who consistently played, right? 9 guys rotation. But what he also had was he had a couple other guys, depending on the circumstances, will come in. Now, they may play a minute, may play 2 minutes, but it always depended on the circumstances. So when I look at it, and the guys that I mentioned, the White, George Hill, Matisse, and possibly and Shake, I look at those guys as being his 4, and then a guy like Maxey and Furkan could be those situational guys who come in and give them a couple minutes.
How healthy is this team going into the last week of the season? I know everybody's got bumps and bruises at this point, but compared to the last few seasons with the Sixers, how much better off are they?
You know what? Compared to the last 2 seasons, they're a way better. I mean, because if you think about it, Joel, I remember 4 games before the playoffs start. He had a bad sprain to his ankle. Like he twisted it. Like he came back and he played like 2 games later, but he had that problem. He also had problems with his shoulder. We know he had problems with his hand. Ben Simmons just came back from a back injury. Like if the playoffs would have been, if there was a non-pandemic season, Ben Simmons wouldn't have been able to play in the playoffs. So even down to Tobias was playing with a little nicked up. So, right now they have bumps and bruises, but when you compare their bumps and bruises to other teams comparable to where they were last year compared to other teams, like I have to say that they're in much better shape than from a year ago.
Ben had the last second to put back to win the game this week on Joel's shot. He looked more aggressive, taking a turnaround jumper in the game the other night. What's your thoughts on Ben and his confidence and the role that he's going to play here? Because Doc, whenever he's asked about, you guys will ask him about Ben scoring, he don't want to hear about that. They go to Ben's defense. Okay. When we get into a half-court game in the playoffs and things get tight, what are we going to see here?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question. The thing is, I think that if they were 100% comfortable in that, I don't think they would have went after George Hill, And what I'm saying is, like, George Hill is going to be someone who, Ben, they kept saying he's a multifaceted player. That's all they kept telling us, right? He doesn't shoot, but he's a multifaceted player. Well, they know, just like everyone else, that what people are going to do is they're going to sag off of Ben in the playoffs. So with Ben being that multifaceted, with Tobias being interchangeable with the 3 and the 4, I look at certain lineups where they'll have George Hill running the 1, and you'll have Ben Ben at the 4, and they'll have Tobias at the 3. That's what I see because, the problem is that, until Ben makes that shot, until he makes it, or, people are going to sag off of him, and he's going to be ineffective. Now he can make a couple of them in a row, and it may change stuff. But with Ben on the floor, running the point guard position in a half-court setting in the playoffs, shots are going to be hard to come by because people are going to double-team Joel. Ben's going to be wide open. Everybody's going to be in the paint. It's just going to be tough. And I think that if they were 100% confident, and as they say they are, they would not have gone out there and got a George Hill.
Well, here's my other nightmare scenario. I'm not worried so much about them sagging off. What I'm worried about is that when you're in a close game, can Ben be anywhere near the basketball? Because Ben seems to be regressing again with regard to his free throw shooting. Are they going to be able to have him in at the end of the game?
Yeah, see, that's another tough one because it's going to be the hacker Ben coming out. But I think, it's going to depend on the situation, I think. Because, you're going to hope and pray that he's going to feel comfortable and confident enough to make the shot. But the thing is, if you really want to win, and let's face it, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Sixers this year, on Doc Rivers, on Daryl Morey, on everyone, the Sixers, to get out of that second round. And if he's struggling, and if you really want to win, I think that it's going to. If he's not making shots, he probably is not going to be on the floor that way. And the reason why I'm saying that is because then it becomes bigger than a player. It's like, okay, are we going to, say that, okay, we want him in here, we don't want him to lose confidence, but we're going to go down, knowing that everyone's going to put him at the foul line, or are we going to take him out there and bring in guys who are better free throw shooters? So I think that, with that being said, if it came down to it, yes, I could see him not closing out games if he's not making free throws.
All right. I got to ask you a non-Sixers question. How sympathetic are you towards LeBron James and Mark Cuban complaining about the play-in?
That's the crazy thing because, Mark Cuban was one of the guys who voted for it, who agreed on it.
And at one point too.
Go ahead, say that.
Didn't LeBron support it at one point too?
Well, here's the thing. This is the deal. So let's keep it 100. Let's keep it real. So if your team is one of the top 6 teams or one of the top 4 teams, you love it because guess what? You don't have to play in it. Your seeding is going to be there. Now, if you're like LeBron James and your team is like hovering anywhere from 7 and 8 or 7 and 8, heck no, you don't want to have a play-in game because then here's the deal. Then if you lose, first of all, you have extra games to play. And if you lose that, you don't go to the playoffs, the real playoffs. So it's like now it's like, oh, well, if you're 8th, you don't want the play-in game because that means you're going to go to the playoffs. But if you're like number 4, of course you want it. See, the thing is, I think like Mark Cuban, he saw how his team was last year. He felt like we're not going to be affected by it. We're going to have a quality team, and they underachieved. The Lakers were the defending NBA champions. They expected to come out of the West as the top seed. So right about now, I understand it. They just don't want to play in the thing because the play-in game is basically going to hinder or decide if they're going to make the playoffs or not, and they don't want that.
All right, Keith, I'm going to ask what I call the Jeff question. It'll be my last one.
Oh, great.
Jeff is no fan of load management. And we see all of these games where teams have their stars not playing, lots of back-to-backs. I get COVID and scheduling and challenges this year. Is the NBA happy with the product they're putting out on the court with all these games where stars are in nice clothes on the bench and G League guys are out there? You had the other night, what did Houston have? 7 guys out there to play and Porter gets hurt and they got 6 guys out there to play. Is that what they want?
It's not what they want, but it's kind of like what they bargained for. I mean, when you think about it, it's here you go. You got 70. The Sixers are playing 72 games over around 145 days. Now, when you think of that, you think about, okay, they were all for a week for the All-Star break, right? And you think about like there are certain times where they had 2 days off in between games, but then they're playing something like 5 games in 7 nights. I mean, it's crazy. So my thing is like the league and the players and everyone knows, in order for teams to get their TV money deal, you have to play at least 70 games, right? So they say we're going to play 72. So it's all about teams getting money. Some players are getting injured because of the playing a bunch of games. So I think like while the league probably does not like the product, they know that the players are saying, listen, we're just basically playing all these games so the owners can get this extra TV bonus, right? So I don't really have a problem with it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's crazy, it's bad basketball, but at the same time, you can understand where if you have a team and you have a chance of contending, why you don't want to play. LeBron James was hurt twice. Jamal Murray is out for the year. There's other guys who are going down and falling and becoming injured. So to me, it's just when you think of 72 games over 145 days. That's a lot. I'm tired from traveling. I don't even play.
I was going to ask, how you holding up, Keith?
Hey, bro, a man is tired.
Well, you got a game tonight, regular season coming to a close. Everybody should follow Keith at Pompey on Sixers, read him in the Inquirer, listen to his podcast. Keith, thanks for the time as always.
And send him lots of Cowboys love.
I'm really not sorry the Eagles jumped above you guys. I'm really not. But thanks, man.
No, right? Hey, you just better hope he's not FredEx.
Hey, easy there. Let me have hope for a little bit. We got Dave Spadaro on next, but he's going to tell me why he's not going to be FredEx. He'd be Jerry Rice. So we're going to get to that in a minute.
All right, bye. All right, see y'all. Bye.
Take care.